Ari, are you there?
Hello.
Yes, sir.
Hi, this is Dave Ari 4. Can you hear me?
Who? What? Yeah.
It says I'm a speaker. Earlier, I had a little trouble with the connection. I hope it's better now.
Yeah, I can hear you. What's up?
Okay. You have so many themes. It's Friday afternoon, and I'm recalling sitting with my old Calvinist Reform mentors on Friday afternoon and Saturday, going back and forth about systematic theology over the kitchen table. I've been a Catholic for over 20 years now, found answers that were not there in the Reformed world. The thing that really grabs me about what you've been discussing this afternoon is the locus, if you will, in the ontology of universals. My Calvinist mentors used to say that we get our universals not from Plato's ideas, but directly from the ideas that are attributes of God, theologically identical with the divine nature.
We don't believe that. We would say that that's Platonism.
I have since learned that, the Catholic Orthodoxy considers that to be ontologism, which is a heresy. I think in the limited denies the incomprehensibility of God. So from where I'm sitting now, I would advocate a return to Aquinas' view that the universals are indeed existent in the created order. They're forward infinite. In other words, they have not been here forever.
We don't need any of Aquinas, because that's not going to be consistent, because he says that the divine ideas are the divine essence. So that doesn't get us anywhere. Maximus's view is that the divine ideas are divine energies or logi.
Well, the divine ideas are the divine essence. There's no problem with that. What I'm suggesting
no,
is
they're
that
not. The reason that they're not is
my background is transcendental Thomism, so I'm coming from that bias.
Okay, and let me explain why I don't think that's the case. I don't think it's true, because if the created things that come to be are patterned on the divine ideas that are in the divine essence, then logically they should come to be necessarily, because the divine essence is synonymous with the divine ideas, and the divine essence is necessary. Therefore, the created patterns are also necessary.
I'm not going to get into the necessity of creation right now. What I am going to suggest,
my argument as to why.
What I am going to suggest is that the universals that we see in the created order are modeled on
you're not going to address the argument.
The Ivum that is.
You don't want to address the argument. So you don't want to address the actual critique of the position.
I'm not sure what the debate is. I'm still figuring you guys out.
I just stated it. Do you want me to state it again?
Okay.
If the divine ideas are divine ideas of created things, and if the divine ideas are the divine essence, and the divine essence is necessary, then the created things are just as necessary as the divine essence.
Well, that's like the old Calvinist supralapsarian debate. Is it supra or infra? You can't get inside the hidden nature of God and figure that out.
It's a logical entailment from the Thomist position.
No, you can't assume that our logic maps over into the divine essence like that.
You just admitted that the divine ideas are the divine essence, right?
They're identical with the divine essence, but
exactly
the pattern of the creatures is in the Ivum, not in the divine essence.
But the patterns of the creatures are based on the divine ideas and divine essence.
The mapping goes to the Ivum, not directly to the essence. Otherwise, we would have ontologism.
How do you know that there's a distinction between the Ivum and the essence?
Because otherwise, ontologism
this just sounds like another made-up.
Otherwise, we'd be violating ontologism.
Well, again, maybe your position leads to ontologism. I'm glad that you don't want it, but how do we know that there's these other distinctions?
Well, I'm certainly not insisting that Aquinas is perfect. I mean, there are plenty of areas where I disagree with him, especially in the physical sciences.
Okay. Fair enough. So can we talk about the epistemology of Thomism, because that's where all of this has its root? Do you agree with classical foundationalist approaches to epistemology, as most Roman Catholics do?
Foundationalism, as in all the requirements for knowledge are met in scripture and tradition?
No, epistemic foundationalism. Do you believe in first principles and self-evident maxims like Aristotle talks about?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Do you accept the peripatetic axiom?
I don't know it by that name. Can you state it logically?
So Aquinas affirms the peripatetic axiom in De Veritate, and he says there's nothing in the intellect that's not first in the sense data.
Oh, I think there's good evidence that, for example, to support a slightly more Kantian point of view, I think there's good evidence that very young children can sense depth before having the experience of it.
So you don't accept the peripatetic axiom. Do you think there's self-evident truths?
Not the peripatetic axiom totally, not at this point, although I think it's generally true.
Okay. Well, yeah, we would agree with that. Well,
Well,
yeah,
if he's a
I would.
transcendental Thomist, he probably
Yeah.
wouldn't. So
He
you're
would
probably
skirt
like
that.
appealing to Lonergan and different people like that.
No, not Lonergan. I like Peter Geach. Some of the British analytic tradition suits me more. Bertrand Russell, Peter Geach. The idea is transcendental analytic Thomism. In other words, we accept the logical ideas as necessary in creation. We don't necessarily try to map it over into the divine nature. The created ontology is distinct from the creator's existence.
Yeah, but I think the point is that if we believe in a via negativa and we reduce God's thoughts or his ideas to the divine essence, and we also believe in via negativa, then we have to assume that there's an analogia, but we never have a basis to know that there's an analogia between the essence itself and the created things. So that's why there is the essence energy distinction, and that's why I guess I would shift the debate then between me and a transcendental Thomist to the Theophanies themselves. Do you think that God can appear in time and space?
Yes, however, I would qualify that. I think most of the revelations in Scripture are probably angels.
Then it's not God in time and
For
space. That's the
example,
whole
the
point.
Shekinah glory. Is that?
You think that's a created being? So you think God's glory is a creature?
Well, it's
Yeah. This is why the system's
it doesn't say that. It says no man can see God's face and live.
And yet Moses saw God's face because God's face is Jesus.
He showed his back parts.
Jesus, according to Paul in 2 Corinthians 3, is who was face to face talking to Moses. The text in Exodus also says Moses talked to God face to face. It says both of those things.
Okay. Well, it
So God can be in time
God's
and space.
representative
And
can be the equivalent of talking to God. It's a royal thing.
No, that's the Jewish position. The Orthodox Catholic position of the first 1,000 years of Christianity argues that it's the second person of the Godhead in time and space. Jesus says he was the one that was there talking to Moses. Who ate with Moses on the mountain?
I'd have to look it up.
Jesus says he's the one that ate with Moses. Yeah. It's a covenantal meal. Who ate with Abraham? Genesis 16.
Right, Jesus did.
Exactly. So there are energetic manifestations or theophanies, which are not angels because you can't worship angels. These manifestations are called God, worshipped, and identified as the second person of Godhead in the New Testament. So Thomism is false.
Huh. Well, I'd have to look up St. Thomas more on that, but I'm not sure he would.
Let me give you an example. Have you ever debated with a Muslim?
I'm not sure Thomas would say that every theophany is angelic. I think many of them are. The ones you cite seem pretty clearly divine
I'm talking
energy.
about the ones that call it the glory of God.
Right. Shekinah glory. That's a tough one.
It's not tough. It's the Orthodox teaching of the essence energy distinction and real theophanies.
Well, back to Muslims. I've debated briefly with some Muslims. I would say they're difficult. They think most of our Trinitarian thinking is just rank superstition.
But maybe the reason that you can't debate them is this very point, because it's necessary to show that the Torah teaches the Trinity.
I believe that, but I think, well, the Torah, I would add the prophets to the Torah, but if you take Torah plus prophets, you definitely get the Trinity.
Well, I did 3 hours of lectures just on the theophanies in the Torah. So yeah, I definitely believe in the prophets too.
Right.
Sure. But the point is that the Old Testament doesn't teach a Unitarian deity. It teaches the Trinity. And the Trinity is derived from all of these theophanies. And so if you take the Thomistic position that the uncreated light and the theophanies are angels and creatures, we lose this whole line of argumentation, which destroys Muslims.
Yeah. That may be a helpful point.
Well, I'm fair enough. I appreciate the honesty there. Anything else you want to get? Discuss?
That's it. I'll leave the floor to you guys for now, but I'll be listening. Thanks for the time.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate the civil discussion.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Okay.